All right, guys, welcome to another Innovation Cafe. Today, we are going to talk about how to innovate continuously. And it seems there's a framework to do that. I think people are used to talk about Agile, Scrum methodologies from the software development world. But when we talk about innovation, usually we just talk about innovation. We don't talk about a specific method to innovate. And I'm sure we are not going to talk about design thinking. That's kind of popular, or service design.
Mhm.
We are going to talk about something more complete in broad, probably that covers strategy besides any tech in innovation. But you guys are not here to listen to me. I guess you are here to listen to our guest. So over to you, Aaron. Feel free to say a few words about yourself and then jump to the presentation.
All right. Thank you very much, Hugo. My name is Arent van Spijker. I'm from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And I've had a pretty diverse career over the last 25 years, I guess. Started off my first job at a bank at a multinational mid 1990s. When about a year into my working life, a friend came up to me and said, "You know what? I've seen this very interesting stuff on a computer, which is called the internet, and I think you should have a look because you like computers, so you might want to enjoy this." He explained to me a little bit about connecting computers through modems, and I looked at him and I heard the clinking sounds of the modems, and I was like, "Nah, I don't think that's going to turn into something big. It's probably one of these novel ideas that nobody's going to use." And then, oddly enough, in the next 25 years, I would be fully invested in this internet thing throughout my career. I have been the founder of web design companies, of training companies specifically for internet trainings. I ran software company for companies over the last 20 years. And I've been an entrepreneur and an innovator through most of that period, up until the financial crisis, when the company I was in at that time went belly up, unfortunately. And I figured, you know what, maybe now is the time for a career change. And I've been in innovative startups, in innovative product development for 20 years. And I decided to go and join a small group of people, actually 8 other people, to work for a company called Blink Lane Consulting. And Blink Lane Consulting was coining the idea that where all other companies were outsourcing their non-strategic IT, we were the one company that wanted to focus on whatever was not outsourced, because apparently that was strategic in nature. And it turns out that that was around 2010, 2012. It was 2013 when I joined. That was what we know today as digital transformation. So today I work for this company, which is roughly more than 100, slightly more than 100 people. We just hit a Series B investment to grow and expand into Europe. And we currently help organizations to become more innovative, more agile. And in particular, our clients are corporate clients, such as large banks, large manufacturing organizations. And we believe that if you want to, make a mark in this world as a corporate, you need to be able to continuously adapt, continuously adjust to whatever the market brings, whatever your competition will do, whatever your clients will demand. And that means that your company needs to be agile, and your company needs to innovate and continuously have this process of renewal in your organization, not just in product development, but also in your organizational methods, also in your propositions to clients. So in the company, we have broadly outlined 2 areas of attention. One is agile ways of working and implementing agile ways of working, and the other one is innovation. And I'm sort of spearheading that last part. And throughout my career, I found that lots and lots and lots of companies are actually doing innovation. And we've all read the work of Eric Ries, that 6 or 7 years ago, not quite sure when that was, but came out with this book called The Lean Startup, where he said, you know what, when you do innovation, you should do short cycled iterations. And for me, it was like a revelation to read that book, because I was dumb to understand that not everyone does that. That apparently there was this waterfall way of innovating where people sort of drew out magic plans on how to develop this particular one market winning product. For me, with my history in startups and continuously trying to find out in the new product development, for me, short cycled iteration was a very natural thing to do. And then I found out that in corporates, that is actually completely different. Now, obviously, Reese pointed that out to us. And then still, when I was working at Blinklane and we were trying to help our clients innovate, we found out that the short cycled iteration is, you know, it's really, it's a nice thing to do, but corporates are really not structured to do that. Corporates really don't have a way of managing their people, managing their funds, managing their projects in a short cycled iterative fashion. And they're all trying to lean startup, and they're all trying to work in an agile way, but it keeps on failing time after time after time. And the reason is not that they cannot do short cycled iterative development of products and services or short cycled change. It is they're not organized to work that way in a continuous fashion. So what you get is small projects that work short cycled, but they're in a big framework of, or in a big setting of a corporate that still has these long quarterly reviews, long quarterly budgets, annual budgets. And you know, you could do lean startup until you look green, but it still wouldn't work in corporates. And so we try to find a way to work around that. And because we were doing a lot of work in implementing agile ways of working in organizations, all of a sudden it struck me that if you can implement agile in a particular way, agile ways of working scale corporates, that might actually be the same way to approach it on innovation. And that's when we founded something called the Continuous Innovation Framework. Now I'll get back to that in a few minutes. But first of all, before I continue on that, do you recognize any of you on screen, anyone in the virtual room, do you recognize this problem? Do you ever work to, I mean, raise your hand or speak out, but do you recognize this problem? Yeah, lots of people raising hands, good. So the interesting part was that when I started working on the Continuous Innovation Framework, I wanted to find a way to make it easy for corporates within their regular way of working with framework of governance to actually come up with a way of working that would allow them to work in short cycled iterative development without turning them into projects that were, you know, tucked away in a nice corner. I wanted a way for large corporates to have a very controlled corporate way of managing a continuous flow of innovation. And that way became, or actually the way to do that is to not so much focus on the innovation, but to focus on the people that were involved in this innovative process, and then give them a fixed way of working. Rather than focus on the idea that they were developing, I would like to focus on getting these people to do in a very frequent and continuous way, getting in a repetitive way, if you will, a short cycled iterative way, repeat whatever it was that they were doing and inventing or innovating their products and services. And that's actually what the Continuous Innovation Framework is about. It is a framework in which people will have repetitive rituals, recurring meetings or events, if you will, that will allow them to bring any idea, not just one idea, but any idea that they will have in short cycled iterations through a particular process. Now, we all know this process where you get ideation, experimentation, scale up, and then embedding in the organization. But this fixed process this is actually a fixed process that happens in every organization in the world for every innovation. What I was looking for was to find a way to make that repetitive and make sure that companies could continue on a particular flow of events throughout the time and time again. So I'm going to share some of my screen where we have the continuous innovation framework. And I'll share that with you. And you should be seeing my screen right now. Can you raise your hand if you can see my screen? Is that okay? Good. All right. So without propping myself, this was actually the first slide in the presentation. I wasn't looking for that. I was just going for this, the continuous innovation framework. I'll come to the other slides later. The first slide was the book that I wrote about this subject. But I'll first explain the continuous innovation framework. So if you see the framework here, you can actually see, and I'll take about 5 minutes to explain the framework. We won't go into detail on every single a little bit of this, but to give you the concept and the idea of what we've been trying to develop. So every corporate needs not just one innovation, it needs continuously innovation after innovation after innovation. So I was triggered very much by 3M, where 3M, we all know 3M from the Scotch tape and the Stig notes. 3M actually has a portfolio of 55,000 products, and roughly a quarter of those products renews every 5 years. So imagine that you are the CEO of this company and your challenge is to, invent 10,000 new products every 5 years, bring them to market, grow them, release them and introduce them into the market, and then embed them in your current sales organization, in your current production organization. Every single year again, that means about 2,500 new products that you need to invent, that you need to bring to the market, that you need to scale, where you need to take out the failures and very quickly and iteratively, keep on developing. Actually, that is a benchmark for all companies in the world. All corporates should be able to continuously introduce new stuff into the market. They need a continuous flow of innovation. And so the focus should be so much individual innovation, but on managing the process of continuously, ideating, experimenting, validating your ideas in the market, and then scaling up whatever works. And that is what this process is all about. So the bottom layer, only the bottom layer of this framework is actually about every single idea, and you'll find stuff that you will probably know. So you get a good idea, you validate it using the business model canvas or the lean canvas, and then you do short cycled experimentation throughout the experimentation phase. And in here is what we call a switch. It's a 6-week innovation challenge. I'll come to that later, but it's a short cycle. It's a cycle of 6 weeks where we try to build something and test it in the market, come out with results, learnings, and then from those learnings, start a new iteration and start a new iteration. Now, the one thing that we've learned in practice from corporates is that they're willing to spend up to 18 weeks of people capacity outside of their running organization or inside of their running organization, sorry, to try out new stuff. And if by that time it hasn't proven any value, then they want to quit. They want to just stop it because those people are all focused on doing their current jobs, not so much on doing their innovation. So after 18 weeks, after 3 6-week innovation challenges, normally corporates would like to either scale up or quit. And this is exactly what we're trying to do here. So if after 18 weeks we prove a point, we have a product market fit, we go into the scale up phase and we scale up the experiments and make them bigger. And then we embed them in the final stage in our standing organization, or we change the standing organization to accommodate the innovation, both in architecture, in competencies, in processes, in the way that we deal with partnerships, etc. Probably know this phase from ideation to validation, experimentation, scaling up, and then finally embedding in the organization. But a corporate doesn't just need to do that for one innovation. It needs to do that for a whole portfolio. So in the middle layer of this framework, we have all of the activities, all of the rituals, all of the tasks for people to perform to managing the portfolio of innovation. And at the top layer, we need to connect innovation to strategy. We need to connect it to organizational change, because you know what? 90% of corporate innovation fails because the corporate is just not willing to change to accommodate for the innovation needs to adapt to the corporate that's there. And it makes sense because corporates were invented to be risk averse, stable, investment protecting organizations to get the maximum bang for the buck that we were currently running, not for the innovations that we were. So we need to align our strategy and our organizational change as well. So we manage the individual innovations, we manage the portfolio of innovations for value, and we link all of that to the corporate strategy and organizational change. Now, in this framework that you can find on continuousinnovation.net, this framework is presented, and you can click each of these icons to see an exact explanation of what is meant. So if you were to click switch, you would get an explanation of the 6-week innovation challenge. If you were to click value goals, you would get an explanation on how your management can set value goals to direct all the innovation effort into your organization. And by explaining exactly what we mean in this framework, the people will be inspired to actually do that. And what we mostly want is people to be inspired to follow the rituals of the black icons. So the black icons are all of the icons that we have people performing tasks. So we know for sure that there's one innovator that will take an innovation team, one person that has an idea, the idea needs to be validated, and then he or she takes a team to perform a 6-week innovation challenge. It is literally a challenge in which these people, usually about 5 or 6 people, maybe between 4 and 6 people, will take 6 weeks, 1 day a week, 1 full-time day per week, over 6 weeks, will build part of their innovation, test it in the market, and then extract the learnings from those tests, and then come up with a new hypothesis of how they can create phase, the validation phase. They will come up first with the biggest fail factor hypothesis that we know from Reese. Reese will say, okay, what is the biggest fail factor for this innovation? You take that and you prove in 6 weeks that you can build it, that you can bring it to the market, test it with real clients or real users, and then find out whether or not you can prove or disprove that hypothesis. If you've taken your biggest fail factor and you fail, and you cannot manage, there is no point in continuing in the innovation. And we try to kill it as quickly as possible. But if you succeed, if you actually manage to get it to work, so this could be a technical feasibility thing or a value proof, so you know, the assumption or the hypothesis that people are willing to pay for this product, or we can actually build this product. If you can prove your biggest fail factor, then you have a second biggest fail factor to prove. And that is exactly what you prove in the next 6-week innovation. And you take another 6 weeks, 1 day per week for the entire team, for each person on the team. So if you have 5 people on the team, it's 30 man days to spend on proving your biggest fail factor, proving your biggest hypothesis after, and then a third time, etc. Now, between those weeks, you see what we call pitch week. Pitch week is where the team that performs the 6-week innovation challenge presents their idea to a group of people called the Continuous Innovation Board. Now, the Continuous Innovation Board is a representation of senior management across all departments, across the entire organization. The reason why is because these people manage the capacity of these people. They don't necessarily know much about the innovation, but they know the company, they know the goals of the company, they know where the company is headed, and they control the capacity and the budget of these people to spend. So if after 6 weeks we present this pitch, you know, we took our biggest fail factor, we proved our point, we would like to continue spending another 30 man days and maybe another 30,000 euros out of pocket cash. Can we go and continue? They will say yes or no. And we know from practice that this is real exciting. So we're doing this in a very big insurance company. Senior management is really enthusiastic because 1 day every 6 weeks, they get about 10 ideas 10 people pitching to them their best ideas, their most innovative thoughts, and they continue to see them grow or fail. But failure is never bad. Failure is awarded. You know, we tried our best. We couldn't prove the value, so let's stop and we move on. We either stop or move on to the next idea, or we continue to the next switch. And every time, every 6 weeks, there is week, six weeks pitch. And after those 18 weeks, we continue to hand over. We either continue with more budget, more structural force, and we appoint an ambassador from this group, from the Continuous Innovation Board, to the innovation. We hand over ownership to the business, and business and senior management set out using a system of innovation metrics that we got from Kroll and Joskovich to actually very determinedly and targeted scale up the innovation and embed it in the organization. Is that clear so far? Yeah, good. I can't see everybody's hands, but because some of the cams are off. So the continuous innovation framework actually in practice works now in a number of corporates with very, very good success. And what we found is that it creates focus, creates everybody at the same time. So we have this cadence where we do 6 weeks of innovation, and then there's pitch week, and we align the board, we align all of the innovators, we align all of these ideas, and we create this cadence. And the cadence creates a very nice rhythm, but also an overview of where we are with our ideas, how we are aligning to our value goals, how we are managing our strategic drivers and opportunities. But also we are finding a cadence in which we can align the capacity that we're spending of people. So we don't over ask on IT. We don't over ask on any marketing resources. We don't over ask on any other resources in the company. We get a very good feel of how many people we want involved in innovation and what they spend their time on. And we have a structured way of filtering out whatever doesn't work so that we can stop it as quickly as possible. Now, to give you an example, in one company where we're in oil and gas, we were invited as a company to implement the continuous innovation framework. And at the time, they were spending multi-million euros per year on less than 10 innovations with an average throughput time per innovation of 18 months. 6 months later, we checked again, and we had an average spend per innovation of less than 50,000 euros. The innovation time was less than 18 weeks, and we were running 37 concurrent innovations at any given time, at any given point in time. And at the beginning, they said, you know what, before you do this implementation of this framework, we want you to start on idea generation, because in general, our company is not innovative enough. People just don't have the ideas. We sort of disregarded that question. We started putting up the framework first because we know the structure in place where you will find the inspirational minds of the people in your organization have lots of ideas for improvement. They just don't have a place to put them. They don't have a landing zone for that. And what this framework gave them was a landing zone. And before you knew it, we get people queuing up, getting ready to do their own switches in this particular framework. And so after 6 months, we were running 37 concurrent innovation programs or switches at any given point for less than the budget that they were spending before, with a higher output at the end, more value generated. Currently, they have 3 spin-off companies. So we did this 3 years ago. We started this off 3 years ago. Currently, we have a number of spin-off companies for this, and lots of process changes, lots of new product offerings inside the company. We're all born out of this framework because it allowed people with bright ideas to very quickly prove that their idea was either good or bad, and have a landing zone for the good ideas within the standing organization, within the line organization. So I'm going to share with you, you wanted to ask a question, Hugo.
No, we have a few questions here. I don't know if you want to answer in a few minutes time, or if you want
Yeah, go ahead, go right ahead, go right ahead.
Mark, do you want to unmute yourself? I think it's easier.
Yeah, I was just waiting. Arent, thanks so much. Really helpful. I actually had a two-part question, which I typed in the sideline in the chat text. First is, this appears to be a tool really for you know, the incremental Horizon 1 style innovation. Is that correct? And then secondarily, what would be the difference between your methodology and just, you know, just running a continuous set of design sprints back to back?
All right. So very good questions. Let me first answer the first question about the Horizon 1 and 2. So actually the framework was born out of an idea that is in my book called Continuous Innovation. And I went beyond Horizon 1, 2, and 3. So I like the idea that we talk about Horizon 1, 2, and 3, but we need to understand that when McKinsey came up with that in 1999, they were talking about an investment strategy, not so much about an innovation strategy. And innovation has changed since. So what I describe, or I'm building on that Horizon model, and I'm describing it something like this, where, and this is derived also from Rita McGrath's opportunity for matrix. If you look at innovation today, and you chart it on a graph like the one I'm showing you now, on the left side, on the vertical graph, on the vertical axis, you will see the uncertainty that we have with regards to technology and execution. So the ability of an organization to use technology for an innovative purpose. And the top here is where things are highly uncertain, and this is where we're comfortable with it. On the bottom end, on the horizontal axis, we have the market and organization uncertainty. So if you innovate in what you know with technology that you know, you do what you always did, using more technology, more data, that is typically what we would now call Horizon 1 innovations. It's not so much because it's close to home, but it's because we understand it, and most of all, because it fits in our current organization. It runs within the organization, you know it. If you move to more complex technology, you will probably find that you introduce new processes within your existing business. So when newspapers went online, they didn't know so much about the internet, but also when online newspapers came to be, it changed very much the nature of the printing industry or the newspaper industry. For one, they didn't have deadlines anymore because they could now, you know, do scoops full 24/7. It's now what we call a Horizon 2, but it's not so much because it's far away before we create a market. It's actually far away before we can actually manage our organization to cope with that. And the Horizon 3 is what we call new business models. It's probably very much advanced technology where lots of research and development needs to be done, but also probably the end result is far away from our current organizational model. So is the continuous innovation for type of innovation? It's no, actually not. We see a lot of it, but that's because many people that come up with ideas have difficulty thinking at this layer. But actually in the oil and gas company that we set out for, they asked us to come up with innovation because the Dutch government decided to stop natural gas as a primary resource, and they want this company to stop doing what they're doing. And they really need to come up with new business models. They really need to come up with new innovative products and services. And we found out that most of the ideas that we're using in this framework are actually in here, but they need more development. However, the way that we did, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so what happens, you talked about this innovation council and this happening. What happens when the new business model is in direct conflict or competition with the existing business model? So we do the innovation sprints and we're going to hit the wall because you just said that the large organization is stable and conservative. Yeah. How does the Innovation Council square that circle?
All right, so very good. Because the Innovation Council here is not, so we understand that they need to understand, so sorry, let me start again with that sentence. The Innovation Council is very much aware that they have a particular goal in this whole process. And one of the first things they're going to find out is we put senior managers on here. So in the oil and gas company, it was the CFO, the CIO, operations directors, etc. So you need to be fairly high up in the organization, because these people have a strategic vision on where the company needs to go, and they can set direct value goals, which we try to get them to focus, between 12 and 18 months from now. Stepping stone innovations. So if they want to reach far, we try to get them to use stepping stones. To give you an idea, when you do ideation in this company, this again is the graph that we saw earlier. When you do ideation, you come up with lots of ideas actually in this Horizon 3 zone. Some of them in the Horizon 2 zone, some of them in the Horizon 1 zone, and some of them are way out there, which have little or no opportunity for success. So we try to be somewhere in this cone with the ideas, but it's usually very bad for the organization to start on an idea number 16, 18, or 19, because they're just too far off from who we are today. So we're trying to find stepping stone innovations, smaller examples that will lead us to grow from one model to the next. And this is actually what we're trying to get this management group to do. The Continuous Innovation Board, try to find value the people to move, stretch out of Horizon 1 into Horizon 2 and into Horizon 3, but understand that around this area, in between Horizon 1 and 2, we have what I call the glass ceiling for innovation. It is the organizational, it's really the organizational structure that will keep you from moving into Horizon 2, because your current organization will not support whatever comes out. So we asked the Continuous Innovation Board to very much create a balance between Horizon 1 innovations, Horizon 2 innovations, and maybe some stepping stones to Horizon 3 innovation. And by every 6 weeks in this model, we don't just look at the switches, but also the innovation coach driving this whole thing will continuously challenge the innovation board. Are we looking forward, and are we looking far enough ahead? Are we actually in Horizon 2? Are we growing towards our goals? And we should be setting strategic goals and value goals for these innovations to actually contribute to an innovation or a strategy or a view on innovation on where we want to head. And that will continuously, we'll continuously benchmark that every 6 weeks. And there is something here called Innovation Day. Every quarter, we want to present to the rest of the organization what it is that we're spending our time and budget on. That also has a session planned specifically for senior management to have a little bit more of a stretch look forward on where will innovation take us? Where do we want it to go? Does that answer your question?
It begins to, and thank you. There's others here on the call today. I don't want to ask too many questions. A very large Dutch bank that is probably 5 kilometers from you in Utrecht, with a blue and orange logo.
I know which one.
Struggled for 2 years with an innovation process where they had an innovation board, and they called it an innovation board, and they had very senior people, but they couldn't get their heads around risky things that were farther out, right? A classic example is they had this scale up and they couldn't even brand it, because if they put their name on it and it failed, that would be terrible. They didn't get credit. If they didn't put their name on it, it was successful, they didn't get to co-brand this wonderful thing they did. And it took them months and months and months and many, many senior managers just to make a simple branding decision. So the devil's in the detail. There's a wonderful methodology. I can see the value of it. Getting those innovation boards to make good decisions, when often when it comes to a difficult decision, the easiest thing to do is the non-decision is the real problem.
Right. So I'm fully with you on, this kind of grand decision or very complex horizon. So Horizon 2, Horizon 3, far off. So this is probably your blockchain something, you know, blockchain related, risky business. Branding in a bank is always difficult. I have this example from the oil and gas industry saying like, you know, some stuff that we cannot do because it will immediately interfere with our income model, which
Sure.
we really, really need on the short term to actually pay for this innovation that we're doing. But also in the large insurance company that I talked about before, you know, sometimes things, so pay-per-use insurance is like the same. It's really, really risky for an insurance company to bring out a pay-per-use insurance because it sort of rips out the bottom of your collective insurance model. What we find is that at least we can get people talking about the same subjects and talking about the same goals that we have and the same strategies that we would like to choose, and get them on the table and a regular pace to discuss this. Obviously, I know that there are some very difficult decisions, and no, this framework is not going to give you an answer to every hard decision to make. But what it does do is that it very frequently brings people together to talk about very focused subjects. And that really works in practice.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I can't see the chat, Hugo, because I'm also showing the thing. So maybe you can help me out on the chat there.
Yes, we have one more question here from Benedict, I think. Are you still on the call? Yes, you are. Can you unmute your, yeah, you are unmuted.
Well, I had a very practical question because I'm just in the middle of this framework. Now, actually, I love it. It makes total sense for me, and I'm in the middle of this. So I'm this poor guy who has to facilitate the innovation. So practical question is, do you have a standard template that everybody who presents to the innovation board should use just to save time? I mean,
Yes.
you know, yeah, okay, sure, yeah.
So we have, so the switch presentations are the pitches as we call them, and actually they're going to be online. That template is going to go online on the framework within a couple of weeks.
Cool.
We have a typical presentation takes 7 minutes.
Whoa.
And there is a mix of question and answer, and then there is a decision. So the format is highly structured because you can understand if you do 15 switches concurrent, you know, in one go within your organization, the board will have to see, will have to watch 15 pitches.
Yeah.
And doing that in one day is really not very feasible. So two ways of getting around that. Some boards will actually, you know, hand out free rights to the innovation coaches, so the coaches can say, okay, yes, you're off to the next. And they usually have between 5 and 10 presentations per pitch week. And they understand one thing very clearly, and this is very neat, I think, in practice. They get this really, really structured pitch of 7 minutes. Then they get 8 minutes of Q&A, and after 15 minutes, they say, yes, you get budget and you get the capacity to continue. And the very next day, the next phase starts. So the board knows very, very well, if we say yes during pitch week, you know, the very next day, another 6 weeks will commence, and these people will take 1 day off per week from their regular work. So they're also managing the business owners, because these people are usually the managers of these people. And because everybody is really aware that the decision has been made to continue, these business owners will actually understand, I need to make sure that these people actually get a chance to do their job because my boss gave them the time off to do so. So what we see in practice is that the business owners that will take responsibility for the innovation after 18 weeks are actually usually onboarded already in the first switch. And this is exactly why they have a CID ambassador and have a very neat program of innovation metrics. So we go, what happens in practice is that the business owners that have, for instance, a sales target or, you know, a revenue target or a production target, they can actually negotiate some of that target down because they have another target on scaling up the innovation. So we get very tangible growth targets on the innovation. You know, you need to move from 200 users to 20,000 users in the next 12 weeks. And you need to have a plan, and we need to do short cycled iteration, you know, usually the 6-week periods, in order for you to achieve those scale up goals. And we see lots of negotiations between business owners to their managers going like, you know what, I can't do my sales target if I need to bring this innovation up. And that's when the board goes, oh, you know, we want to innovate. We really want that. Or they renegotiate slower progress, less time invested. So you get a really tangible discussion about budget and time on how fast you can grow your innovation. And that is very valuable in practice. But yes, so the template is going to come online, maybe not next week because I'm still on holiday, but you know, the week after we have the draft ready, we think it will be online. But it's 7 minutes and 8 minutes of questions.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks.
Also, if you want to know, we have created a number of trainings for this through our sister company called Global Academy, and we're setting up a certification program. So the first people are now being certified as innovation coaches, and the first boards are being certified as continuous innovation board, so that they're fully trained. And in that training, you also get you know, lots of materials that are standardized.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
All right. Any more questions? I didn't hear that, but can you repeat the question?
Hello, hello. You hear
Hi,
me?
Jordan. Jordan, yes, I
How
can
are
hear
you?
you,
Good.
Jordan. Good.
Yes, my name is Jordan from Africa. I'm corporate innovator in telco organization in Senegal. I have one question for you. Who is CIB ambassador? Like innovation director, chief innovation officer, like this?
No, actually, the continuous innovation board. So to give you an example, the insurance company that we're working with, we have divisional directors are on the board, including their CEO.
Okay.
So we have the CIO. So we have, you know, the board comprises of 7 people. It's the CEO, the CIO, and 5 divisional directors, and they control all of the company's capacity, or all of the units. This is actually, it's 1/5 of the insurance company that is running this particular board, and they're controlling all of the budget and all of the capacity in the company.
Innovation team, yes.
And they all of the capacity, whenever IT developers need to work on a particular innovation, or whenever risk analysts need to work on a particular innovation, they will understand. So this board is actually the management of all of that company. So they control all of the capacity of the people that are on that team, and also all of the money, although they have a particular innovation budget that they should come from. But they can say, you know, last week we had a CIB meeting, we had pitch week, and they said, well, there's one innovation that needs 2 risk analysts, but we cannot give you a go ahead for the next switch because we know the risk analysts have a really big project that we give preference to, and we cannot get 2 people 1 day a week off from that program. So you'll have to wait for 6 weeks with your innovation program, because those 6 weeks are for the risk analysts on their big project. But after that, we can assign this capacity to you and you get the go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Does that answer your question?
It's good. It's good for me.
Good. All right.
Good. All right.
Any more questions on this?
Yeah, hi Arent. This is Kaushik. Thanks a ton for the presentation. And normally the continuous innovation board have people who are within the organization, and the risk-taking appetite, in my opinion, is lower as compared to the risk-taking appetite that is there outside the organization.
Yes.
Isn't that an inherent problem with this model, that given the risk-taking appetite is lower, for example, in the oil and gas company, yeah, I mean, by nature, they have a job to ensure that they take low risk or
Yes.
ensure that the risk is zero?
Very, very, very good question. And this is also this is the subject that hits us most. My theory is that 10 years ago, corporations, well, so if you read my book, that I've made this whole study moving from Joseph Schumpeter on economics and his ideas on gales of creative destruction. I don't know if you know the theory, but he said, you know, corporations get disrupted every 15 years because new innovations come up and destroy markets. He called those cycles business cycles with gales of creative destruction every 15 years. Then we had Clay Christensen in the late 1990s who came up and said, you know what, IT came along and the internet is coming along, and those gales of creative destruction have reduced from 15 years to 5 years because IT technology moves on faster and faster and faster. And that meant for corporations that their risk averse structure should be overturned at least every 5 years, because, you know, their current way of working and their current modus operandi would have to be relieved every 5 years to adjust to the new market conditions. Now, my theory is that today, with digital transformation going on, corporations really don't have the time to be that risk averse anymore. So it's an interesting question, Kaushik, that you're saying as well, shouldn't this happen outside the organization? Outside is where the disruption happens, and disruption is destruction of capital. And if you are a corporation, you don't want to be disrupted. So because that's the destruction of capital invested. So you don't want to be risk averse. You want to be able to be agile and work and change with the motion of the market in order to protect the capital invested. So you need your management to change and take those risks, but take them in a very secure and structured way.
Yeah, what I meant was not necessarily doing 100% outside, but could there be within the in the Continuous Innovation Board, could there be an external board member who challenges the CIB to deliver and take the risk?
Right. So I think, interesting thought. I think definitely we should have outside influences into this process. For instance, in the determination of strategic drivers in idea generation, because people from the outside tend to have a broader view of the market, a better understanding of technology, and they have this outside in look, and not so much the, you know, this is how we do it mentality of the inside. I fully agree. However, whether they should be on the board or not, I'm not quite sure, because the board here is primarily a mechanism to understand, to provide direction. So they need input from the outside, but they need to make decisions on the capacity and on the budget. And an outside person is not the right person to, you know, make a decision on capacity allocation or budget allocation. But yes, there definitely needs to be an outside in influence. It's what is covered in this area, if you will. And what we do see is that we get on Pitch Week or Innovation Day, we do try to get outside in inspiration to the board. Actually, come to think of it, I kind of like the idea of having someone on the board, one person, not the majority, but one person on the board that could have this influential voice saying, you know what, you may not like this, but actually I would advise you to go with this particular innovation because it might help you in the long run. It's an interesting thought, definitely.
Hello.
Hello, Fabian.
Yes, hi, how are you? It's Fabian from Metanoon. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Yes, it's just a thought. I just wanted your perspective. It's actually around a statement that you made earlier about, you know, this is the time where companies should, you know, be a little bit risk adverse and just be agile and move ahead. I was wondering if the market is moving so rapidly or changing so rapidly, and it's quite hard to predict, is there an innovation strategy of just not doing anything and observing, you know, as one of those strategies? Because, now it's the time where resources are spent, on very critical areas, and companies that are trying to innovate very rapidly, they might be, spending those resources where the market could shift again very quickly. So in your mind, do you think that's the strategy of no move, slower move, observe the move? It's just like the Rocky Balboa movie, right? It's just, I'm going to hit you.
Yep.
I'm just going to wait until is the right moment. Is there a rocky moment in this kind of scenario as well, where the market is so buoyant?
Yeah. So actually we have one company that is using the continuous innovation framework with the strict objective to be a fast follower and not so much the innovator in the market. So, but still, it leaves them, so with disruption, I don't like the word disruption very much. With market dynamics moving so fast, you need to be able to respond to market changes very quickly, because the next change is going to be on the way. And the time to enjoy a particular a particular product or product service is getting shorter and shorter, depending obviously in which business you're in. But we have this one company that says we don't need to be the first mover on the market, but whenever our competitors come up with something, we would like to be the fastest person following them. So the fastest number 2 or 3. But that too, from the perspective of your own organization, means that you need to change fast. You're just not the first one to come up with the idea, but you need to adjust your processes. You can probably do that faster than the first mover. But
well, I was thinking, I was just thinking in the scenario, for example, for example, you have the vaccine tomorrow and you are the one that's predicting this scenario happening, right? So you have the next airline, spending about £1 gazillion or US dollars, trying to change a lot of things. But you are just looking at that scenario where things will just bounce back, right? So it doesn't mean that you need to re-change or rejig too much, spending about 100 million doing that. So I'm not 200% sure that I know the fast follower strategy. I'm just saying, is there a strategy where you just wait and see? Is there a viability in this strategy for innovation today?
Yes. So I think it depends. It highly depends on your market. I think for some industries, yes, surely there is.
Okay.
I also think that lots of innovation will bring, or some innovations will bring big bets on stuff that doesn't materialize anyway.
Yeah, because just now when you said about the risk analyst, it's not going to be available for 6 weeks, this team is not going to be available. But I was just thinking that no one could predict the future right now, with things so, uncertain. So you're continuously innovating. You think it's disruption, you think it's moving forward. Instead, you might be just going into unknown territory and, getting yourself locked into a typical management situation where you're throwing good money after bad, right?
Right.
And I'm just saying that there is a scenario where I feel, my gut feeling is that there are some companies just doing the silent observer, letting the competitor burn out their resources, and then they self-destruct. And then, they start to change when the market becomes a little bit more certain. Obviously, the segments and the industries might be different. I'm just sort of in the mode where there is a scenario potentially where no move perhaps could be the best move.
Absolutely, I agree. And it's obviously you also don't need a framework for that kind of strategy because it's just sit back and relax. But yeah, I can imagine that some companies will choose that. Some companies also rely heavily on very old-fashioned inventions that they did 50 years ago, and they're still making good markets out of that.
Yeah, I was just talking to this family-owned business the other day. They run, they're not a huge organization. They've been around for about 30 years. Every single year, they do between 60 to 70 million, pounds, or about 70 to 80 million, 60 to 70 million quid. And they run a 10%, 5 to 10% net profit just by buying, wood and selling doors.
There you go.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't, because they know that whatever happens, you still need some wall panels, in wood. You still need to repair your doors and everything else. And when I spoke to the owner said, you know, I don't have to do any digital transformation today because, you know, whatever happens,
Yeah.
people will still need to have some wood to repair their floors and everything.
Yeah.
I don't need to innovate and disrupt because I would just have to conserve my resources, wait for the market to, you know, to normalize a little bit more. So I saw that, I was thinking, shit, you know, should I be encourage him to innovate like crazy? Or should I respect that decision that he's taking a good strategy anyway?
No, I fully agree, and so I had a very similar situation. In 2013, I published a book called The New Oil. It was on using data-driven business models. I had a very similar situation where some CEO of a also a family-owned business came up to me and said, you know what, we pour iron into molds. There is nothing digital about this. Why would I have to work with data to improve my customer service? Is my customers, I score 8.7 out of 10 in customer satisfaction. Why, how is data going to help me to make more money? And is it, you know, we looked at it for 2 days and I couldn't find it. So yeah, for some companies, obviously it's not a necessity. However, fortunately for me and my business, I think 90% of the companies do have that.
Yeah, I fully agree. I'm a big fan of, you know, digital transformation and moving ahead with a data sort of like anchor in lots of things. I'm just putting it out there that there is also a strategy that is probably less talked of, which is a strategy of no move. And I just thought that that is also a viable strategy instead of only a fast follower or, you know, a market leader, you know, go faster, you know, and fail faster. I think that's a lot of like lingo around that. I'm just putting it out there because the market is moving so fast. There's also one strategy that I observe, which is a no move strategy, which is still viable though. So that's my 2 cents.
What I do like about your remark there is that one thing that I tried to do when I established the continuous innovation framework is that I wanted to get the hype out of innovation, and I wanted it to be structured in corporations as a standard process. So there is a whole lot of hype going on about innovation as a bare necessity, innovate or die, you know, that kind of remark. I really don't buy that.
Me too.
Which is your point exactly. Same thing as disrupt yourself before somebody else disrupts you is that's complete bogus. That is absolute nonsense.
You know, there was this guy who said, you know, disrupt or die. You know, I was like about to fall on my chair.
That's just not, in my opinion, that's not what we need to focus on. What I like why we built the continuous innovation framework is to create a steady process, a predictable process for a subject with unpredictable outcomes. So
and I got
predictable processes.
Can I distract and go on a side note? Because just now when you were mentioning about the point on your certification program for the board and such, have you ever gone down the path of looking at what is the DNA of an innovator? You know, not only by certification, but also but looking at the you know, like what made Michael Jordan great. You know, you get what I mean? There is not, you know, he doesn't have a certificate in basketball, but you know, he's got some areas that, you know, core skills, both hard and soft. You know, the way he gets his opponents, you know, psychologically in a different place. Trash talking and all that. It's a repertoire of skills. So, do you have something around those lines as well? Continuous improvement, certification, but truly understanding what is the DNA of a innovator of the future.
So I'm not so much. I think there is lots of innovative potential in lots of people, and I'm trying not so much to focus on individual innovators, but assigning a process, a stable process and a predictable process in a corporate, so that whenever a person has a bright idea, without him or her being, a die-hard innovator or have 100% innovator DNA, but to give everybody a stable process to go and chase that one thought or that one bright idea that you might have, or that one idea for improvement, that you might have that will actually make your company better or make it more money or make life easier for the people working there. And make sure that the company has the fastest way of proving that that actually has value.
Yeah, I'll go back to my basketball analogy. If you're looking at how Michael Jordan plays, off during his training sessions are more powerful than the actual match itself, because he trains his team 2 or 3 times as real and as hard as possible in those practice matches. So I'm just saying that the process of passing the ball and all that is your innovation process. However, the DNA of really striving to be like superb from a DNA perspective, that I think could be a competitive edge. So let's say if you have 100 companies with the same processes that you have, everyone would be equal, right? To a certain degree, you have step 1 to step 10, you have a board member on top. But I think then the winner, as what you would say, whether you are a fast follower or smart, observer, or you are going to break the market, that I think comes down to understanding the DNA of a future innovation, kind of person. So maybe that is one area that might be an edge, for organizations to look at.
All right. Well, let's
Cool.
take that point. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
There was a comment here comparing your approach to the Scaled Agile framework. I don't know if you want to comment that very quickly.
Yes. So if you think they look alike, you're 100% right. So the Scaled Agile framework has been a source of inspiration for the continuous innovation framework, no doubt. Not in the least because we were asked by one of our clients to see if we could synchronize the continuous innovation framework with the Scaled Agile framework Cadence. So the continuous innovation framework is set up in such a way that the cadence that it has in the 6-week innovation challenges, if you understand SAFe, the Scaled Agile framework, they have 3-month cycles called program increments or PI planning events or PI cycles. And it's not a coincidence that 2 6-week innovation challenges make for 1 PI. So that we know that during scale-up phase, when innovations come out of the experimentation phase of the 3 switches, the capacity that is required, and I'll go back to my shared screen, the capacity that is required for programs coming out of a switch into the line organization, if you have a fully agile or a scaled agile organization, the capacity in the scale-up phase is directly aligned for PI planning. So during the 3rd switch, you can set up your features already for preparation and refinement for the next PI, with the PI happening here so that you can immediately continue. So yes, there is a source of inspiration from the Scaled Agile framework and also a very nice alignment between the cadence of the continuous innovation framework and SAFe.
Arent?
One last question, please.
Hello, Arent. My name is João. I'm inside of my Tesla car in Portugal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was thinking you guys were inside the same car.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I don't know. We never. I don't know. He's not here. Oh, he's not here. But yes, Arent.
Go right ahead. Go ask your question. I'll adjust my background settings to none, and you can. We're not in the same car. He's not here.
No. Well, my question is regarding the high velocity organizations, high velocity IT. I'm a specialist in processes in ITIL, ISO 20000, and so on.
Yeah.
And right now in this framework, ITIL 4, high velocity equals to speed and direction. Okay, so for example, in the analogy of Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan right now has a huge of success because he has money. Okay, he got plenty of money. Okay, if we thought regarding the basketball players that have such success like Michael Jordan, we don't know. Okay, regarding this, how you consider that, for example, our cars, the Tesla, Elon Musk, regarding the high velocity, the guy have the right direction or the speed of both. For example, if he can have, for example, cars that can fly, okay, he has the speed because he's the first one, but there is no direction, okay, because of the rules and so on, okay. Is Elon Musk a guy that have the direction and speed, or this is just luck, or this is just passion because we bought this car of emotional things, of passion. We are loved by this car. What is your thoughts?
So I cannot look into the mind of Elon Musk, and unfortunately, he's not a very close relation or friend. So I don't know what's driving him. But what I do know is that he has a very good sense of direction on where he wants to take Tesla. And I think translating that back to the continuous innovation framework. If you remember at the top left, we have the strategic drivers and the value goals. What we know for sure in innovation is what helps is if innovators get a sense of direction from their management on where they should innovate or on where the portfolio of innovations should go. So I'm going back to the screen sharing. Hang on. Oops. I'll show you on the framework. Here we go.
Yeah.
So in portfolio management, if you have more ideas than you want to spend capacity on, you want to spend your capacity for innovation on those things that matter most to your organization. So the oil and gas company that I was talking about at the beginning of my presentation had to move away from natural gas. And they wanted to, they could pick a number of areas where they wanted to innovate. But at one point, management said, whatever happens in this portfolio, we want 60% to be focused on hydrogen, whatever the subject of the innovation, as long as it's hydrogen. Then later on, about a year later, they said, it's 50% hydrogen, no longer 60%, it's 50% hydrogen, 20% CO2.
Okay.
Transportation of CO2. And by doing so, we could pick from a backlog of ideas. We knew we could do roughly between 30 and 40 ideas concurrent. By setting that focus, and because you have 3 switches, there are 30 in switches, there are 10 on average in a switch, you know, for the next switch, you might want 5 or 6 ideas focused on hydrogen, maybe you want 2 ideas focused on CO2, and you know you want to continue that for a particular period of time. And then you can challenge management again and say, okay, we're well on our way in innovating in CO2 or in hydrogen, particular areas. Where do you want us to focus? The results on hydrogen are very good. Maybe you want to adjust your focus or sharpen the focus, but give people some sense of direction. And from the backlog of ideas that came out of this continuous program of idea generation, we could pick, you know, we had maybe 50 or 60 ideas on the backlog. We could say, okay, we move some of you up in priority because you are in the value goal areas of your management. And the others, thank you very much for having great ideas. They're no doubt great ideas, but they're just not in the focus area of the company.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we have this neat little mechanism called weighted fastest innovation first. For those of you who know Agile working, weighted shortest job first is an adjustment of how do you prioritize those innovations that will give you the most expected value in 5 years, so the highest potential upside in 5 years, weighed against the time to market and the effort to market for your MVP. And it will give you a great prioritization mechanism to determine which ideas to first follow and spend your energy and budget on. And I'm not sure if Elon Musk does this, but at least he has something similar that will get the sense of direction for, you know, building the Tesla cars.
Mike, it's Fabian here. I thought, you know, he's, whenever he talks, he seems to be talking about something along the lines of the Kardashian scale. I'm not quite sure you guys know that. It just feels like he's reading about, you know, different kinds of civilizations, you know, that could, you know, expand in the future. So interesting guy, and very interesting guy.
By the way, guys, he challenged Johnny Depp for a challenge, okay, inside of a cage, fists only. So he's kind of a type of innovator. And Mickey Rourke said, no, sorry, it's me against you, okay, with only one hand. So it's going to be fun. All right, guys, we are running out of time. One last question, please. Or no more questions? Marta, you are so quiet.
Well, Hugo, innovation
I
is
can,
my
sorry,
car.
just shortly explaining why I'm so quiet, guys. I got an accident, so I'm not well in speaking. That's the reason. I'm listening very carefully.
Good.
I hope you are well. That's what matters. Yeah. João.
Well, Hugo, innovation is my car. Doing this presentation, do a software update. This is innovation. Okay. Your car does this?
I don't think so, but I like classic cars. So
yeah, classic cars. Yeah.
Very, very innovative car.
All right.
Cars
So
that don't get hacked very easily.
what I like most actually, so to wrap this up, Hugo, with a nice anecdote, I think innovation is something. So my definition of innovation is the introduction of something new that adds value to the market. And I was pointed to that only today when I told at the beginning I'm having my holiday in a very outback German village that looks identical to how it did 100 years ago, and it has no Wi-Fi and no 4G reception. That's why I'm in my car in a bigger city a little bit further away. But when I came out of the house this morning, there was a farmer standing next to my car, and he was looking at my car and he said, I know, that's really wonderful, this car, and it's, what brand is it? I don't know the brand. And I said, it's Tesla. And he said, oh, I've read about Tesla, but I've never seen one, and it's an interesting car. And I said, it's fully electric. And he said, oh yeah, really? Oh, that's nice. What does that mean? And I said, well, it doesn't run on gasoline, it runs on electricity. He said, yeah, I get it, but does it drive any better? I said, no, it drives like an ordinary car. It's smoother, but it's, and we started talking about the car, and I wanted to show him something. So I pressed the button on my remote for the car, and the back hatch opened automatically without me touching it. And he said, that's wonderful. If you have your hands full, you don't have to open the trunk with your hands. You can just, that's really, really, I could use. And I went like, this car, the whole concept of electric cars and a big screen and autopilot doesn't mean anything for this guy. They don't have white lines on the road, so autopilot doesn't work in the village. But the fact that he could open the boot with no hands, that to him was innovation. It was something useful, something of value introduced to him in the market. And don't ever forget that innovation is not about technology. Innovation is about creating value for the people that use whatever it is that you're making. I think that might actually be a nice one to conclude this with.
Thank you, Aaron. It was a very good one. Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Aaron, thank you very much. Another perfect session. And the framework is something that now I think people will consider. We are more rich after the presentation. Thank you, guys, and I hope to see you all next week. If you didn't make it from the start, just go on YouTube/The Innovation Cafe, and you will find the video there. Okay. Enjoy your evening. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.